Yeah, life. Perfect. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the Winner's Paradigm podcast, brother. It's an honor. We've been connected with similar people. You have an amazing podcast that I started listening to a while back and really got to know you through the podcast and then social media. And then I was like, man, you're a Marine too, so it makes it even better. So before we get into that today, let's go with a little bit of who you are, what you're passionate about today, brother.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. Been looking forward to this, and I know we have been connected for quite some time and have just not quite gotten there as far as the podcast goes, but now we're here, so I'm excited for this conversation. Yeah, I mean, who I am first, I'm a husband and a father. That's who I am first. That's been my life since my wife and I have been together for a very long time, but that has been my life, and that has been what my identity has been a father and a husband. I am, obviously a podcaster. I've been a podcaster for 4 years. I've been a sports coach for a long time. I won championship games. I've done that sort of stuff. Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps. I mean, I've got a lot of different moving parts in my life, but for the most part, my role is a husband and a father. That is my role. And that's how I will always identify myself, as a husband and a father. And it's two of the things that I'm most passionate about. My wife and I have a very phenomenal relationship and continue to have a phenomenal relationship. And my two boys, my older son will be 25 next week. My younger son is 22. And so they're two grown men, and they're two of my best friends. And so I can honestly say they're two of my best friends. And it's because I'm a firm believer in the fact that they're my best friends because of the way that my wife and I raised them and my bond and relationship that I had with them growing up. So that is me in a nutshell.
That's incredible, brother. And that was kind of why I wanted to get you on, because for me, I come from that place of being that scared little boy, and having that place of hurt, not having a good relationship with my father, my stepfather. And one of the things that I failed in my life, which I didn't know until I got older, definitely learned in the Marine Corps because they picked it up really quick. And so you're a leader, 19 years old, was a corporal in a staff sergeant position, and was running the aviation operations side. So the ops for the 22s, running that whole department, building it from the ground up, and then running the training side. So for me, it was doing this, but for me, I was always looking for that leader and that one that was just different than everybody else. And I was like, hey, when it really stemmed to doing that work, it was from not having that dad that I admired. My dad was great in certain aspects he wasn't. And my stepdad, same thing, factory worker, but just when it came to simple mindset things, I was just like, man, me and you aren't on the same frequency at all. And I always searched for that one thing. So that's what I love now, is being able to talk to other men, dads, husbands. And I love the way you identify as that, is I'm a dad and husband first. And I do the same thing. And people look at me and I'm like, hey man, like I take care of both of my little kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. And the way that happened was we had a nanny. Nanny moves to Minnesota. At the time, I actually was helping vets with their VA claims and making good money there. Pretty easy, kicking my feet on the couch because I was like, oh, I can close this all day long. And then the situation was the manager called me and was like, hey, man, is your heart really in here? I noticed your numbers dropping. And I was like, hey, I'm holding my daughter, making sales calls. I'm closing deals. Like, I don't know what you guys want out of me. I'm making all these calls and still taking care of my kids. And that's where, me and the wife had the conversation. And I was like, hey, I'm going to quit this job because it doesn't align with trying to be the best dad I can be. I was already working 60 to 80 hours and they wanted more out of me. But in my head, I was checking out because I was capped out on my commissions. And I was like, why am I going to work anymore? I literally could take 2 weeks off a month because I would get all my work done. And that was the biggest blessing in disguise. You mentioned being in podcasting for 4 years. And for me, I was already in it. I was able to leverage that, work with one of the biggest guys in podcasting, and then started to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And that was the powerful part for me as well, is figuring out, hey, how do I be the best dad? How do I be the best husband I can be? Because I wasn't present. So for you, you talk about it a lot, being the best dad, being the best husband you can be. What is one thing that men are lacking when it comes to presence and truly just being there to spend that time with our families?
Well, I think, first of all, I appreciate that story that you shared as far as, your job goes. For me, I worked in corporate America, and one of my one of my supervisors, when my boys were little, and my older son was about to go off and play in little league sports at the age of 4, I wanted to be that coach. I wanted to help him out. I wanted to coach one of his teams and all that. And it was my first time coaching. And so I had to go to my supervisor and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to coach for my son on his team. But it's going to require me leaving the office, to get to practices and get to the games and all that. Is that going to be a problem? And they said, my job had always said, if it's, as long as you're getting your work done, we're good with it. Right. So you do what you need to do as long as you're getting your work done. Had they told me otherwise, had they said kind of what your job said, like we need you here. You need to be aligned here. And, there's plenty of other guys that can coach. So we need you here. I would have said, thank you for this opportunity, but I'm out. I literally would have walked away because that's how important it was to me. So that's not the case for everybody. Some people don't have that opportunity, but that would have been my opportunity had I said, had that guy told me that. Fortunately, he didn't. And I continued to coach and have the job and be successful and all those sort of things. So what are dads lacking now? I think the dads are lacking now is just the understanding and the confidence to not only have a successful career or a successful business, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you work in corporate America, to have that success outside of the home, but also be a successful father and a successful husband. Dads, a lot of guys carry the weight of having to feel like they're the provider for the family and they have to give everything they can possibly to the family financially. So that means they are going to have to work 80-hour weeks in order to make that happen, which means now they're going to miss the dance recitals. Now they're going to miss the games, the little sports games that your kids are in. Now they're going to miss the parent-teacher conferences. Now they're going to miss opportunities to go on field trips with your kids when they're in school. They're going to miss all these things because they think that they have to go out and make as much money as possible so that they can bring it home to the family and be that financial provider. I'm here to tell you, you're absolutely wrong. I've done absolutely the opposite of that. I've been a very successful businessman. I've had a lot of opportunities in my life that have come up that I have taken advantage of, but I've also been that successful dad and husband. And I'm not saying that because I think I am. I'm saying that because there are 3 people in this house right now, my 2 sons and my wife, that will tell you that themselves, that I have been that successful person outside of the home, but I've also been that successful dad and husband. So it is possible. And what dads are missing is that disconnect. They don't think that that's possible. And I'm here to tell you that you're absolutely wrong. And if you don't believe me, call me and I'll talk to you and tell you exactly why.
I love that so much, brother. And that's something I'm going through right now. And it's funny because our roles are reversed. For me, I have the conflicting roles. The reason why my wife's still in the Navy and the nanny moved. So we were figuring out how we're going to make this work. And she's like, well, you take care of the little ones. And she's in the Navy and military police, but she had 3 brain surgeries recently. So things were just kind of all over the place, and for me, it's been taking care of the kids. And it's funny because one of the things that popped up was, hey, you started a business with one of these guys who's a 7-figure entrepreneur. A lot of people know him. I love this guy because he taught me for about 1.5 years before I even started doing the business and having my own podcast. And love this fucking dude. Flew out to St. Louis, hung out with him, went to his event, and it didn't work out, and I was crushed because I was talking so highly of this individual. My wife was looking at me and she's like, well, it seems like you're so much happier, working on this podcasting and talking to men and really, figuring out what you're passionate about. And for me, it was looking at the money aspect. And I was like, well, fuck, I got to take care of the kids. And that means, people don't realize that on normal days, I wake up at 3:30, I go to the gym, I'm up early, I get a workout in, I take care of the kids and feed them all day. I'm cleaning the house. When wife gets home, she's not upset that the house is a disaster because the 2-year-old likes to take out all the toys every day. And I was thinking about it, and it was funny because we're talking about the roles, and I'm talking about being a provider. And one of the things that came up was money. And it was like, well, you had this business that really didn't pan out. You worked with this guy that you didn't make any money with. And it went into me feeling less of a man because I was like, well, I stepped back because I'm a heavy sales guy. So I was always selling. And I was explaining to my wife, like, for a man, it's hard when all you've done is work your ass off and make money. And then you go to a point where you're not making any money. And what was funny, especially when it came to my business and I was playing it safe and not building my podcast production company, not starting my mastermind and helping men, transform their stories and use it strategically so we can talk about what we're passionate about, but more importantly, align to the same people who are doing the same. The more that I focused on the negatives of I don't have time, I take care of the kids, you don't understand where I'm coming from, and came up with this victim mentality. It's essentially what it was. It was funny because it was taking me further away from being the best dad and husband I can be. And when I
Mhm.
started looking at it, like recently, like I said, my wife, September, had surgery. And it was funny because I was like, there was days where I barely got any sleep. And I was like, you know what? I'm grateful for this. Why? Because the kids are young and I have pictures and I stay home with them. And this is something that, yeah, it may suck right now. The money may not be there, but I'm thinking and I'm like, eventually this is going to be better. We're all going to look at it and laugh at it, but I'm grateful that I have this opportunity. And when I started to change that, and I took a different mindset, different approach with it, it was different because I started elevating on a higher frequency when I was talking to people on business and they're like, man, you take care of both of your kids, you're up that early, you do all this. And I'm like, yeah, and it's one of the things where we're not going to get a nanny that's somebody that we're not comfortable with. We're going to figure out when the time is right and who. But I was like, it's awesome to me because I literally get to have a podcast interview with you and talk about being a better dad at the same time of being a dad, taking care of the kids, doing what I have to do, prioritizing the things. And this was something that for a minute, I was thinking about, oh, this is holding me back. I'm not good enough. I suck. I should be making money. I'm not doing my roles as a man of providing for my family. And my wife brought it to me as, hey, you're providing in a different way, but this money thing's going to happen once you figure out that mindset portion of how you need to show up differently. And it was crazy because when you were just saying that, brother, it was clicking to me. And I'm like, I know it's a little bit different story, but that was something for me that once I just changed that mindset and started bringing myself with a different energy to life, it started just clicking, started closing clients, started working less. And all of a sudden, things started stacking up for me where before I was still in that picture of that's why I was working with that 7-figure entrepreneur is he had it figured out. I didn't.
Yeah, I get that. And one of the things that helps is not only making sure that you're coming from the right mindset, but also changing our vocabulary. And our vocabulary has a lot to do with not only us as husbands, as us as business people, but also us as dads. And I hear dads say all the time, well, you know what? I don't have time to take him and be at all his games, or I have to take him to his games, but I have to get back to work. No, you get to take him to his games and you get to have a job. You get to work. You have to change the words that you use will change and reframe how you think about whatever it is you have to do. No, you don't have to take him anywhere. You don't have to take him to his practice. You don't have to take him to his little league game. You don't have to take her to her dance recital. You get to do those things and look at it from that mindset. You get to have that opportunity to do those things, take advantage of it, and be proud of it, right?
I love that again, and that was something for me. I heard from you on one of your podcasts was talking about the get to do those things, and get to be able to change it. And for me, it was funny because I kept thinking about that line initially was it was a whole year working with a guy and didn't make anything. And I was, getting angry because I was like, man, now we're in debt. Now the wife's on my back even more. And it was funny because the more that I focused on that and I kept saying, oh, I have to, versus like I get to. And then the second part was the physical fitness component. Once I started losing the weight, doing a little more, started following different guys, doing burpees every single day. And I'm like, well, I have 10 minutes. I'm going to push these push-ups out, do some burpees. Just like before we got on the call today, I was doing burpees because I was like, hey, I need to be in the right mind space. I need to be in my flow state. So when me and you talk, I bring the best energy, can be the best that I can be within this time frame. Things just started to just gravitate and shift differently. And I love that about you, brother, is you put the work in, but more importantly, you challenge yourself to do the hard things. You just ran a marathon this weekend. What was it like once you got that done? I thought it was pretty awesome that after, you're decompressing, taking care of your body and you were building the Lego sets. And I was like, that's what it is, is really doing the hard things and then taking the time to admire it and say, hey, I did the hard things. Now it's time to sit back and have a little bit of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, this is my first time running a marathon, although it's the first marathon I've done in about 5 years. So it's been a while, but I think honestly, when it comes to running a marathon, the hardest part is not the marathon. The hardest part is actually the training. the training that you do leading up to it. And that's the same thing in anything in life. You know, the hardest part of running a business isn't actually running the business. It's actually all the stuff up before running a business that makes it challenging. Same thing with being a dad. The hard part's not being a dad. It's the hard part is not knowing how to be a dad. The hard part is not knowing when that child comes out, what it's going to be like to be a dad. That's the hard part. So that's the training part of things. So yeah, the marathon was it was tough. It was brutal. For whatever reason, my legs and my back, my feet, I should say, my back were not in the best position to run a marathon that day. It's just a day that was not working out for them. So it was a little tough of a marathon for me. But I also knew, and I actually did a video during the marathon. I did a video about this that I'm actually going to have my team push out. They're going to post it for me. But I did a video about, hey, you know, sometimes we face challenges and we face struggles. And I was facing that struggle at that moment. It was like mile 19, I think mile 20. I was facing the struggle of not being able to have the confidence or not knowing if I was going to be able to finish the marathon. Like I was in that much pain. My feet and my back were in that much pain. And for whatever reason, I've ran 20 miles before, I've ran 22 miles before and not had any issues. For whatever reason, that day was not it was just like, nah, we ain't cooperating today. So I was at a point where, yeah, I could very easily just give up, right? I could very easily just say, you know what? It's not my day. I'm going to have to call it quits. But I knew I'd be letting myself down. I knew there would be regrets if I did that. So I knew that I had no choice. I didn't have to finish that marathon. I get to finish that marathon. So I took that opportunity. I said, look, I get to finish this and I'm going to make it happen because I'm holding myself accountable and I want to be proud of something that I've done. Not necessarily for my wife and kids, but be proud of something that I've done. And what does that do? That teaches them resilience. That teaches them having the determination to keep going and keep fighting when things get tough, when things get challenging. So I actually made a post about that during my marathon. And I have to tell you, the best part about running a marathon, you hate it when you're running it. You also ask yourself several times, why in the hell do I put my body through this? What kind of idiot am I to put my body through this? I cannot believe people actually put their body through this torture, through the training and then the running. The best part about the marathon is obviously the end, when you finish and you cross that finish line and you absolutely look forward to the next one. You may not look forward. You'll be like, I'm never, ever running a marathon again while you're running this marathon. But at the end, you're thinking, when's the next one? Because it's the greatest feeling in the world. So yes, it was tough, but I got it done.
I love that about you, brother. And you could tell the Marine in you by saying that is you weren't going to quit. And that was something for me, is I love that about the Marine Corps was I was able to use my ego and tap into it all the time where, you're going through the suck and then you see somebody right next to you and you're like, there's no way I'm giving up on this. Like, it's just not going to happen. Not today, and you keep going. And I think that's something that you've shown as well, especially in life, like no matter what comes your way, brother, you get through it. And then also you elevate yourself. You have incredible guests all the time on your podcast. And it's really awesome because it's like, I start connecting with other people and I'm like, man, I'm going to get better guests. And then I see what you're doing. And I'm like, bro, it's inspiring because if you continually surround yourself with people who elevate their standards and are the best that they can be, you get better. And in your case, brother, you're bringing that to the dads. You're bringing that energy. A lot of dads don't think that. We're stuck in the same ways. We're still drinking. We're still checking out, trying to escape life and not figuring that out. What have you seen when the men start to, see the signs and then actually take massive action by saying, hey, I need to change in life if I'm going to be coming with a different energy and becoming a better dad, better husband for my family?
Well, the difference is night and day from when, if you're that dad that's watching this right now and just thinking, you know what, I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know what else I can do to be there for my family. I need to make some changes in my life. And maybe that is the addiction that you have. Maybe it is the alcohol or the drugs that you're taking, or maybe it's that a gambling addiction that you have or that pornography addiction that you have. And you need to make a stand to make a change. I was that alcoholic over 14 years ago. I was that guy because I sat in my living room and would drink beers at night and just beer after beer after beer and had no worries, no problem. I still had a functioning life. I would go out to work every single day, would not drink and drive. None of those things happen. But I was that casual drinker, and it started to affect my family. And when I saw my boys um, coming to me and bringing me a beer, because I asked them to get me a beer out of the fridge, right? Bringing me a beer, and I'm realizing, what am I doing to my kids? I'm teaching them about alcohol when they're 9, 10 years old. I'm teaching them about alcohol, and that's just not something that I wanted to do as a father. That wasn't who I was. So I stopped. And the day that you make that decision that, hey, I need to change, whatever that change is, for me it was alcohol. I need to change, and I made that stop that day. I'm not doing this anymore, and I hadn't had a drink since, over 14 years later. But I'm telling you, the day that you make that decision, it's a decision that you make and stick with. The day that you make that decision will be the best decision you make. And you'll automatically, from day one, see a drastic improvement in not only your mental health, but in your family, in your relationships. There may be some healing that needs to take place over the years. Maybe it's going to take a lot of work to get back to where you think you need to be as a husband and a father. But I'm here to tell you, the day that you start that very first step is the best day of your life, and it will show dramatic improvements immediately.
I love that you say that, brother, because that was something I just hit over a year of not drinking.
Good for
And it's
you.
funny is thank you, brother. And it's funny because it would have been a little longer, but I made excuses. So the issue was family party. My mother-in-law got me to take a sip of vodka that she made, and I blamed her. And if my mother-in-law wouldn't have made me, and I like thought about it, and I was like, you know how stupid I sound, blaming my mother-in-law. She gave it to me. She didn't force it down my throat. She put it up to my mouth. I was like, drink this, and I did it. But it still took me, and I was blaming her instead of just taking accountability and saying, hey, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done it. And then come a whole year, and I'm like, it doesn't even matter because, like you said, that one day, for me, I talk about all the time is I will not show my ass to my kids and continually be that way because I had those parents. I had a dad that had this work hard player mentality where he's in his eyes, he's in the gym at 4 or 5 in the morning every day, Monday through Friday. So on the weekend, he can party, do drugs, do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And it's okay. And then my mom's on the other side, she tried to justify drinking 3 or 4 beers a night. And my stepdad, who was one of those skinny fat guys who would eat like crazy, eat all this bad shit, drink like crazy, and wouldn't
And
gain
nothing
weight.
happens to
Exactly. And it was funny for me because I used to always get in those arguments with my mom. My mom would be like, I'm functioning, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and I'm functioning, my life's good. And my dad would say the same thing, my life's good. And it's like, if you looked at it, you're not. And these people aren't happy. And that was something for me when I stopped drinking, was like I started looking more at psychology. And I'm like, I can tell by the habits that people have what the life they have. I can tell by the way that they drink or the way they talk about it, what it is. And I'm like, this is coming from the guy who was his own boss at 19 in the Marine Corps, was drinking a whole gallon of whiskey, was working from 4 in the morning at PT to 1900 at night, and then would go to college and then be like, all right, we're going to party this weekend and drink for 10, 12 hours. Like, I thought I had it all figured out and it was working well. And that was my identity. And it's funny, it's like with my wife, I ran into that issue. I stopped drinking initially. It's, hey, you're boring. You're not the same anymore. You don't bring that same energy. And you mentioned the healing. That was something for me I had to do, was heal. But also learn too, is like, I'm so blessed that my kids are never going to experience that, of the abuse that came with the drinking or just the seeing it every day. And I heard something the other day and it crushed my mind, where it was talking about the rite of passage. And it was saying for normal families, the rite of passage is turning 18 or 21, going to the military, and you can have beers with your family. And that's what's it. And it's like, it's not, it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, when it's like, that's what we socialize to say, hey, this is cool, this is normal. And then when you start repeating it, you're like, I don't think this is really good. And two, I was laughing because I was like, if my kids ever want to do that, they're not going to get to drink with me because I'm going to come real with them. And I'm like, yeah, dad's an alcoholic. Dad would go crazy. I don't identify because I no longer drink anymore, and I'm not putting that in my life. You won't see me anywhere. I really don't make face at places because I know it's not going to bring me good things. And it was funny because I heard that quote the other day, and it was talking about that. And I was like, man, this is powerful, as people don't understand that. And two, it's like, if you think about it as a rite of passage of most people, of, hey, when you're this old, you can drink with us, and we've been building you up there. And then you get mad at your kids for drinking just like you did. It's like, well, you created the problem because you showed them exactly what is okay and what is normal. And for me, I was falling into it thinking that it was okay, not intentionally, but subconsciously, because I was trained the whole life of just seeing them drink on a regular basis, to when I got there, I was like, oh, it's no biggie, especially the military. It's so social to have a drinking buddy and to go do it. And then when you don't drink, people would ask me, hey, why aren't you drinking? And it's just like, I really have to sit here and explain to you why I'm not drinking we have issues. And I didn't realize that initially. I've tried to argue with people. Now I start laughing because I'm like, I know exactly where you're at. I've been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. And, I think about, when it comes to my own family, it's like, hey, I made that decision for them, and it's something that I will always be proud of. And yeah, there was that bit of hurt when my older son, now my younger son, who's now 22, but especially when my older son, when he turned 21, and we went to a little bar down in town, and some of the family came and stuff, and they helped him out. They helped him have some fun. And it was hard for me as a dad, to sit there and watch him enjoying himself. We're having fun with him, but to not be able to have a drink with him, as a dad. Here I am, I'm not able to have a drink with my own son. And it bothered me. And my wife said, "Why does that bother you?" And I said, "Because it's like this special like bond that, like I get to have a beer with my boy, And she said, "But why is that important? Just create other memories, just create other, significant points in your life with your son. It doesn't have to be, why does it have to be centered around alcohol?" And I thought, you know what? She's right. It doesn't have to be centered around alcohol. We can have other significant moments in our lives together as father and son. So yeah, you have to find a way to create other things, other memories, other significant points in your life as a parent with your child. It doesn't necessarily have to be around something significant like having a beer.
Oh, thank you for putting that icing on the cake by using that. That is awesome. And I don't think people realize that. And that was something for me. My stepdad, he took me on 20-mile hikes the week before I went in the Marine Corps. We're doing 20, 25-mile hikes and a day. And, it was like a 3-day thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this with my son, because I just remember like me and my son didn't have the greatest relationship, but this was awesome for me. And it was funny. It's like he drank a little bit. I didn't. And I was like, that was something that was pretty cool, was doing the hikes and so forth. And I know I'm going to have that same thing because I run into it all the time with family or whatever. And they're like, we go to a bar and then they're drinking and they're like, what do you want? I was like, I'll get a Diet Coke. And they're looking at me like, first off, why are you drinking Diet Coke? Second off, are you sure you don't want a beer? And I'm like, nah, I told you I don't do that. I don't need it. Never drink it again. I'm cool with that. So it was funny when you mentioned that, because that was something I was thinking about literally this weekend. I was talking to my wife about yesterday, was like, when it comes to, setting things up for the future, talking about the kids and how we're going to show up differently. It takes a whole process. It takes being disciplined in showing them. And I was like, eventually I'm going to have to sit them down and they're going to be like, Dad, why don't you ever drink? And I'm going to be like, because this is why. This is where I came from. My parents would drink, get abusive, get crazy, get in people's faces, throw the craziest New Year's parties. And I'm like, that's not life to me. Why? Because we're getting trashed and the next day we're all hungover and then you miss your workout. You eat like shit. You eat greasy food and then you reverse yourself back. And I didn't realize that when you drink, your metabolism gets messed up for 72 hours. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I used to say, I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. Probably because I was drinking so much, but I didn't understand that and didn't put the time in to actually understand what that was doing to my body. And when I did, things started to change. So I really appreciate you, brother. You've been an amazing guest. Where could people find you if they want to learn more about you? They want to hear your podcast and hear more of your story, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having me on. And yes, I am all over, social media. Obviously, Instagram's the main one, at Dad Up Podcast. You can follow me there. I have TikTok. I have LinkedIn under my name, Bryan Ward. Obviously, Facebook is under my name. You can also find my Dad Up tribe there as well. But I'm on all the social media. And as far as my podcast, it's just Dad Up Podcast under anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all those places. And then obviously my YouTube channel as well, Dad Up Podcast.
You've been amazing, brother. And I'll leave you with the last question then. What would you say to that previous version of ourselves? We don't know where to start. We just want to align ourselves with our definition of success.
Oh man, there's a lot of things I'd like to tell my previous self or my younger self when it comes to life in general. But I think the most important thing for me is just enjoy life. I mean, if I could go back, I would say just stop stressing about the little stuff, stop worrying about the little stuff, and stop being in the comparison trap. Just enjoy life and cherish everything that you can about it, because it goes by fast, right? Especially when we have kids. So appreciate life and appreciate the challenges that you go through, because it'll only just make you that much stronger.
Man, you put the icing on the cake, and I was gonna follow that up, but I don't even know if I have anything to say after that, brother. So thank you again, brother. I know definitely I'd love to connect in person next time, get you on the show for a second time. So thank you again, brother. It's been an immense honor. I've been following you for a hot minute, so now being able to have this interview is pretty awesome because this was one person I was like, hey, I'm putting on my 100 list, and I'm gonna get Bryan Ward, and we're gonna talk about being a better dad and husband,
That's awesome.
and it's gonna be good. So thank you again, brother.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you having me on.